I'm John Hanna for CDTV.net here in New York, and we have Kelly McDonald. Currently, she's at Big Sky, Montana. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, John. I appreciate it. How are you today?
Great, great. And yourself?
Also well.
All right, awesome. And that sounds like a beautiful place out there, Big Sky, Montana.
Yeah, it's about 40 miles from Yellowstone National Park, and the weather is just perfect. It's about 75 degrees during the day and 40 at night. And I live in Dallas, Texas, so this summer in particular it was important to get the heck out of Texas and escape the heat. And I've been up here for about 10 days, and so that's where I'm taking this call from today.
Tell us about yourself.
Sure. I'm an advertising and marketing professional, and I've spent my entire career, John, in the advertising agency business, working for top global ad agencies on all different kinds of business. And it's really where I fell in love with what I call the business of persuasion, which is really what marketing is. And in 2002, I started my own company, and I started off as a professional speaker, speaking at conventions and conferences about marketing, diversity marketing, and the importance of marketing to people not like you. And then that kind of grew into my own ad agency. And today I spend about 80 to 90% of my time on the road doing the professional speaking stuff. And I'm also an author of a book, and my staff takes care of the clients that we have in Dallas.
Awesome. And the book that you have currently right now is, tell us about the book.
Sure. The title is How to Market to People Not Like You, Know It or Blow It Rules for Reaching Diverse Customers. And I wrote it last year, and it was published this year in 2011. The premise of the book is that diversity marketing has very little to do with the color of your skin or the shape of your eyes or how old you are and all these other sort of demographic constraints that we put around, trying to define a target group. And my definition of diversity is any way that you can be different from me. So, John, if you have kids and I don't, we're going to be very, very different. We're going to have different priorities. We're going to have different pressures. We're going to make decisions differently. We're going to spend money differently. Everything is going to be different between us simply because you're a parent and I'm not, let's say. Or if you're in the military and I'm not, we're going to be very different. If you live in a rural community and I live in a major metropolitan city, we're going to be different. I believe that there's many ways that we can be different from each other. And so consequently, tapping into a new market group for any kind of business owner or corporation or company is an incredibly lucrative way to grow their business. But I wanted people to think of outside the box and think of a new way to think about markets and target consumers, and that's what I mean by marketing to people not like you.
Well, do you have a case study that we can look at?
Sure. The book is actually full of literally hundreds of examples and case studies of companies, big and small, U.S. and global, but let me give you a couple of them. One example that is, I think, a really great example is, I think everyone knows the automotive brand Subaru. And Subaru in the car and automotive world is a very small player. I mean, they are a fraction of the size of Toyota, Ford, General Motors, or anything like that. They can't compete. They can't compete in volume, and they certainly can't compete with a marketing budget. And so when Subaru was looking at how they could grow their business, they knew they could not outspend their competition relative to marketing dollars. That's just a game they can't win. So rather than try to go after all the same people that everybody else is going after to try to get them to buy a new car or a new truck, Subaru identified the people who are the most likely to buy their vehicles. And they narrowed it down to like 4 different types of people. And one was teachers, one group was physical therapists and EMTs, emergency medical technicians, one group was engineers, and one group was outdoor loaners, is what they call them. So each of these groups gravitated towards Subaru for different reasons. The outdoor loaners like the all-wheel drive and the ability to drive up the mountain and get 1 mile further into the trailhead. And the EMTs and physical therapists and teachers, they liked the practical aspect of Subaru and the fact that it was a well-built car and that it's going to last and that, having that vehicle for 20 years is not unheard of and that it's dependable. And every time they put the key in, they know it's going to start because people depend on them. And the engineers liked the brand because they really appreciate the technology in the engine. So what they found was they could actually grow their business by targeting just those groups rather than trying to target everybody in the world. They did the opposite of what I call spray and pray. Spray and pray is, spray your message out there as broadly as you possibly can and pray to God it works. And they did the opposite of that, which is they narrowcasted and they said we'd rather go after the 5% or the 10% of our high potential target and really, really resonate with them and connect with them in a meaningful way in the marketing rather than try to be all things to all people. And it worked. And not only did it work, it really saved the company. They'd fallen on some difficult times years ago, and with this new strategy, they came out of that and moved forward. Another example would be moving companies. Moving companies are companies that are in a very perilous place because typically if you're moving and you're hiring a moving van, then once you're sort of assured that this company is not going to lose your stuff or damage your stuff, it becomes all about the bid. And that's a very vulnerable place to be. Nobody wants to hang their hat 100% on price because anybody can better your price. But if you're a moving company, that's the game you play, right? You're giving bids for people, and then you hope that they, respond to your bid. Well, what moving companies are doing to market to people not like them is expanding their services with a new service that's also high potential profit. And that is recognizing that with a growing older population in the United States, that many of us have aging loved ones. And at some point, for many of us, we might have to make that difficult decision about putting a loved one into some sort of assisted care or a nursing home. Well, that's a really difficult decision for the entire group and the whole party, because the person who's being moved feels uprooted and they're leaving their home. And the person who has to make that decision, someone like me or someone like you, they feel guilty. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation. Well, what these moving companies are doing is recognizing that it's a very sensitive time in someone's life, and they're saying, you know what, we're going to move your mom or your aunt or your dad or your father-in-law, but before we go in and just pack up their stuff and move them, we're going to take digital pictures of all the rooms in their house. And we're going to be able to, when we unpack them in their new place, we're going to use those digital pictures to replicate the room as best we can. So, if your father-in-law had a sofa, and next to the sofa on the right-hand side was an end table, and on that end table is a lamp, and then there's a little family photo, they replicate that as they're unpacking him exactly that same way. It's a really small thing, John, but it brings a tremendous amount of comfort to the person who's being moved. And for the person like you or me who has had to make that difficult decision, what would we pay for a service like that? In my opinion, pretty much anything they want. Because in that situation, there's not much you can do, but that is the one thing you can do. You can spend the extra money and make your mom or your dad or your loved one just a little bit more comfortable. So that's the kind of examples of what we're seeing with innovative marketing techniques and innovative products and services that are designed to reach new markets in new ways.
Okay, and where can people find you?
Sure. They can email me at Kelly, Kelly, at McDonaldMarketing.com, and McDonald Marketing is just all spelled out. They can follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Kelly C. McDonald, like C as in cat, and they can call me. And they can call my number. It's 214-880-1717. And, of course, they can see me online. My website is McDonaldMarketing.com. And I'm on Facebook, too. I'm everywhere.
Awesome.
I'm not hard to find.
On Facebook, they just put in your name?
On Facebook, they can go to McDonald Marketing, or they can put in Kelly McDonald, and I'm in Dallas, Texas. There's a lot of Kelly McDonalds, but they'll be able to find me. I'm the blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl in Dallas, Texas.
There you go. That's Kelly McDonald joining us from Big Sky, Montana, and I'm John Hanna for CDTV.net in New York.